Hi, today I want to show you how to do a provisional cast on. This one you use a crochet hook to cast on the stitches straight onto your knitting needle. So it's quite an easy one to do, and the one I use for any of my patterns that require a provisional cast on. So the first part of the video I'll show you how to cast on directly to your needle using a crochet hook, and then the second part of the video will be how to unravel that provisional cast on. So I'm using some 8-ply yarn, so onto a 4mm circular knitting needle. So I've got a 4mm crochet hook to assist with getting those stitches onto here. I'm going to use a smooth contrasting yarn just so it shows up really easily. So the first step is just make a slip knot, and that goes onto the crochet hook. The method I use is a little bit like knitting. You use that same action. The crochet hook just helps to pull the stitch through the loop. So the crochet hook sits in front of your knitting needle. You wind the yarn around as if to knit, and then you pull the strand through the slip knot that's sitting on the crochet hook, and that gives you one stitch onto your knitting needle. So I'll show you again. So each time you just wind the yarn as if to knit around the crochet hook, which sits in front of the other needle, so it's around both the knitting needle and the crochet hook. Pull the yarn through so you retain a stitch on the crochet hook at all times. Cast on 25 stitches plus one extra. When you use this method of a provisional cast on, what you need to do is pop on one extra stitch, which you'll decrease in the second or third row, sometimes the first, just depends what the pattern advises you to do, because when you unravel the provisional cast on and work back the other way, you have one less loop available to use. So you start off with, say, 26 stitches here. That's what we're going to do today. On the third row, we're going to knit 2 together at the beginning of the row, and then after a few more rows, I'll show you how to undo that provisional cast on. So let me just check how many stitches I've got so far. So 2, 4, 6, 8, 10, 12, 14, 16, 18, 20, 22, 23, 24, 25, 26. Now, when you've got the number of stitches that you need for the pattern that you're making, you then make a few extra chain just on this end. So you just pull those through your crochet hook. And that just makes it easier to find the end that you need to unravel. So cut that off. Once you've cut that thread off, just increase the size of your loop and pull that in through, and we'll fasten off. Once you've got your stitches on your needle, you just start knitting as instructed in the pattern with the correct yarn across those stitches that you made. Just remembering to decrease where indicated in the pattern. Usually it's just that one stitch that you need to get rid of that relates to the provisional cast on. Now I'll go away and do a few rows on this, and I'll come back and show you how to undo that provisional cast on. Now I'm going to show you how to unravel the provisional cast on and return the live stitches to your knitting needle. So we've cast off our work. The pattern will instruct you to turn your work to the wrong side, and you just need to unravel the little tail that we made at the end of the provisional cast on. And just take that carefully out till you get to your first stitch, which is there. So you can take them out stitch by stitch, coming from the top of the needle, and pull them out one by one like that. This will sit the stitch correctly on the needle. I'll just turn that round and show you. So the right leg is sitting towards the front, but the other way that you can undo the provisional cast on is you can come from the bottom and, you know, grab a few stitches at a time. And then you can pull the provisional cast on like that. With doing it this method, the stitch actually will be mounted incorrectly on the needle. So I'll just turn around and show you. So the left leg will be at the front. So what you'll need to do is turn those stitches before you knit them, or knit into the back of the stitch to make sure they're sitting correctly. And I always remind you to do that before you work that first row. So I'll keep going from the top. If you have interrupted your provisional cast on and maybe twisted the yarn when you've perhaps put the slip knot or the stitch back onto the crochet hook, you might find this doesn't come out as smoothly as this, but that's fine. What you can do is just snip off this provisional thread as you go if it's getting caught. But the idea of using a smooth yarn means it doesn't catch onto the yarn that you're going to knit the blanket with, and it pulls out quite easily. So if this was a hairy yarn or a non-superwash yarn, it would stick to the white yarn a little bit. So when you get to this last stitch, just be really careful that you don't lose it off your needle. and then that yarn will simply pull out. So I'll do a quick stitch count. I should have 25 stitches, 2, 4, 6, 8, 10, 12, 16, 18, 20, 22, 24, 25. So you'll remember I cast on 26 stitches, but we decreased one at the beginning of the third row to allow for the fact that when you take out the provisional cast on and work back this way, you actually lose one loop. When you work back the other way, you have half a loop sitting at this end and half a loop at that end, which you're not able to utilize as a full stitch. So now just turn your work to the right side and continue with the Avery pattern. It will be to continue knitting the border with these live stitches that you've created. And that just, using a provisional cast on is just a way to make sure all the borders on this blanket finish with a cast off edge to make it look super neat. Good luck with your knitting.